It's now time for the fastest and hardest hitting hour in radio, Pull No Punches Radio. Pull No Punches Radio is powered by the Enlisted Nine Fight Company and brought to you exclusively by the Tan Talk Radio Network. Join UFC legend Chris Lights Out Lytle, Enlisted Nine Fight Company founder Dan O'Brien, and media mogul Jay Pagliaro, along with recurring guest Colton Smith for the next hour as we deliver up-to-the-second news, rumors, and discussions from the world of mixed martial arts and sports. And now, here are your hosts, Chris, Dan, and Jay.
I wish I knew then what I know right now. When my parents split, that's when it shook my ground. No source of strength, now my life wasn't clear. Cracks in the foundation.
Dan O'Brien.
Paycheck to paycheck, 3 jobs at a time. Mom tried, I watch her crying.
Florida, how y'all doing today? We're waiting on Jay and Chris to join the show this morning, but hey, we're glad to be back from the National Training Center, U.S. Army Training. And Colton Smith will be joining us a little bit later in the show. Just got a couple of great things to bring up with the Enlisted Nine Fight Company. Everything's going very well. You're tuning in right now. You can find us at Enlisted Nine Fight Company on Facebook. Going to talk about a lot of MMA this morning, get you caught up in the world of sports. And other than that, let's get it going. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing okay, Dan O'Brien. I did see an MMA match over the weekend. I don't know if it was from last year or this year where the Final Four and had the Spanish guy going up against that young guy, 21 years old, right?
Oh, you must have been watching the Bellator tournament.
Yeah. That's what I watched, yeah.
Yeah, that's always a great show for everybody to watch. Here recently, though, we've had some great UFC fights, a little bit of controversy as usual, but we saw Ronda Rousey defeat Sarah McCain, who said that she was injured, and they stopped the fight. But overall, it's great, another great night of the fights, and we're just looking forward to what's coming up here in the future.
What's that 21-year-old fella's name?
You know, I didn't watch that. I think it may have been a Grand Prix. I'm not for sure, but it could have been Renan Barreto.
He likes to jump up in the air a lot. Come down on the guy with his. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I think it is. I would have to see the fights. I was out there doing my Army training out there in the National Training Center out there in the Mojave Desert. So I'm trying to get caught up right now. And Jay will be on here in a minute. I guess he's hung up some traffic out in Phoenix.
So what kind of training you doing out in the Army?
Oh yeah, we were doing some maneuver training out there with my cavalry, brigade.
Oh, what's the name of it?
The 1st Cavalry Division.
Oh, all right. I was looking for my 1st Cavalry Division music for you.
So other than that, everything was good, and we're interested in getting into the show today. And I mean, a lot of good news coming out of Tampa Bay, as you know. The Lightning are obviously Lightning in the playoffs there. Is that right?
I have not been following the Lightning. I'm not I am a hockey fan, but I just don't follow the Lightning for some reason.
Well, I tell you what, Tampa Bay got a lot of stuff going on there right now. Just talking to my family out there, they were saying that a lot of spring training balls going on, a lot of great things going on in the Tampa Bay area, and hopefully it'll be a great sports season for everybody.
Now that I do follow. Spring training baseball, I do follow.
So how are things going in that area right now? Is population picking up?
Oh, yeah. It's like there's a lot of traffic on a highway no matter where you go. 19, which is then they got construction. Alternate 19. Then they got parts of that shut down. So it's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I grew up there at Dunedin High School, so I'm very familiar with all those areas.
What year did you graduate Dunedin High School?
I graduated on the best football teams there ever from at 89 is when I graduated, but I played on those teams from 86 all the way through.
Huh, I would have graduated 87 if I'd have stayed in Dunedin.
Oh, yeah? I didn't know you were at Dunedin High School.
I even went to Dunedin Elementary behind the Toronto Blue Jays field.
Well, guess what? So did I, and I used to be a bat boy out there at Grant Field.
All right, I need if you still got your little yearbook picture, your yearbook from there. When I was in 4th grade, you would have been in 2nd grade. So get that yearbook out and see if you see me.
Oh, from Dunedin Elementary?
Yeah.
Well, small world. Where'd you go to middle school at?
I just went to that elementary school behind the Toronto Blue Jays field, and then I went to the one up on Main Street for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Douglas or whatever the hell it is. But where the same street, Patricia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Patricia was at Dunedin Middle School then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there also. So you were a Highlander also.
That's right. I was 2 years ahead of you, or a year ahead of you.
Wow. Small world. And then you what high school did you go to after Dunedin?
To Ohio, Franklin Wildcats, Franklin, Ohio, next to Middletown, Ohio.
Small world. So other than that, everything else is going great. You know, we got the company going on. We got Colton Smith. He's our UFC fighter. He's getting ready to go into training camp.
Yeah.
Here soon, and then our other good buddy Tim Kennedy, he's training camp right now to fight Michael Bisping. So,
do these
exciting stuff going on for Enlisted 9 Fight Company right now?
Now, do these MMA fighters, when they're taking, you know, they ever run into that the thing with, like, you know, the Buccaneers had for in their shower area? What was that? What was that micronism called? What was that called?
You talking about staff?
Yeah, staff. Does that happen amongst the MMA fighters when they're traveling around? Do they ever come across that?
Well, in the gyms, periodically, sometimes there will be. You know, it's just inevitable. But for the most part, most of the gyms now have some great, you know, cleansers out there, and they're able to fight off the bacteria. So it's not as prevalent as it used to be, but yeah, it's still out there, especially in your high schools.
Well, if you want to know about bacteria stuff, we have the show that comes on after you. That's Robert Harriman's Outbreak News, and he talks about all that stuff. He's from noon to 1 today.
Oh, really? Well, that's awesome.
And you know Downtown Dave, right? Do you know who Downtown Dave is?
Yes, I do.
He's got a book signing too today. At the
really?
Yeah, Barnes and Noble here in downtown Clearwater at Sunset, in the Sunset Plaza.
Wow, that's awesome.
And he's giving away Renaissance Fair tickets, and he's giving away T-shirts. And guess what? One more surprise. You ready for this one surprise?
Yeah, what's that?
Now, this is say it's going to happen today. You ever heard of the Buddy Verde Show? That comes on from 1 to 3. That's that big band guy that plays, he used to play in Benny Goodman's band.
Uh-huh.
Well, somebody that we know here that has a show here, she is teaching John Gruden's son to play piano because he's a DJ and he wants to take piano lessons to learn digital music and play and everything like that. He's supposed to be on the Buddy Verde Show today, John Gruden's son.
Oh, that would be awesome, you know.
That would be great. Even if John Gruden shows up, that'd be awesome too.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't bring no NFL football. I forgot to bring an NFL football down to the radio station.
To get him to sign it, I'm sure if you talk to the son, he can manage that for you with no problem.
I don't know if it's going to be. I know the son may be here, but I don't know if the dad will be here or not. I don't know. But we'll just have to cross our fingers. And Jay has not still called in yet.
No, that's okay. He's out.
There he is right there. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jay, are you there? He should be there. Jay. Well, I guess I picked it up too quickly. Why don't you talk a little bit, and I'll check it.
Yeah, he'll call you back. But anyway, our Jay, he's hung up in some traffic out in Phoenix this morning. I guess there was an accident, so wishing him well, and hopefully he'll get on the show here soon. We got our buddy Chris Lytle. He's up in Indiana today, up in the Indianapolis area, training his son and some of his other great collegiate, soon-to-be wrestlers. So we're looking forward to seeing what the outcome of that is as well. So, like I said, it's going to be a great show. Waiting on Jay to get here, waiting on Colton. We just got all kinds of things going on in our travel worlds, playing U.S. Army as well as UFC fighters. So we appreciate y'all tuning in, and hopefully Jay will pop in here real soon.
Hopefully he will call back. He will call back. How long have you been in the Army?
I've got 22 years now.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, there's a lot of people out there in the Army and the Navy and Air Force, and there's an important bill that they're trying to get passed, and that's H.R. 975. Let me check on him now. Go ahead and start talking.
Oh, yeah, we're fine. Yeah, what bill were you referring to?
All right, Jay's there. Jay is there. Go ahead, Jay.
What's up, Daniel?
Hey, buddy, how you doing? Everything going all right there this morning? I know you got hung up in a little traffic. We were just trying to keep it going until you got here.
Gotta love morning rush traffic. You know how it goes. You know what I mean? Pile-ups and top of pile-ups and cops on top of cops. You know how the drill goes.
It seems like it's an everyday occurrence. You see what it looks like down there in Florida right now. I mean, we got all the people down for spring training baseball, and this never seems to end anymore, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's actually, as we speak, what's going on here in the midst of spring training. You got the Cactus League, you got the Grapefruit League. I mean, baseball, spring training right around the corner. which means spring training actually ongoing, which means Major League Baseball right around the corner, Dan. And I'll tell you what, I mean, between that and March Madness, you just can't ask for a better time of the year of sports. I mean, this is just entertainment galore. Of course, the NFL draft right around the corner. There's so much happening in the sports world to discuss here, on this program.
Oh, absolutely. We were just hitting on a few of those points there, and a lot of big things going on. The Tampa Bay Rays, I'm sure they're going to be around, this year. As usual, they'll figure it out, and they'll make a nice run for it out there in the St. Pete area.
Well, so here's what makes Tampa so good, too, is, number one, I mean, the big question mark obviously facing them will be involving David Price. How much longer is he going to be a Ray? But I know, they signed with that 1 year, $14 million contract extension. And at this point, I mean, obviously, though, with or without him, this is a franchise that has just perpetually adopted the farm system and adopted smart drafting philosophies to where they're able to make moves like David. If they were to move David Price, they're going to get a haul off him. But they're just built for success. The organization from top to bottom, just is built for long-term sustainability. And that's something a lot of Major League Baseball fans don't get. And it's something a lot of sports fans don't get, is that, you don't, in order to win and sustain success, it isn't about how much money you spend. It isn't about signing the biggest names and the biggest free agents. It's about building a farm system to where if you need to replace pieces, there's somebody ready to roll. And, I mean, we'll just look at the case in point last year. I mean, they traded James Shields, the Braves did, who was, without question, one of their most popular and most tenured players, if not one of their best. And they go out and they get, Will Myers, who is going to be an anchor in the outfield for years to come. And they're just as good. They still win 93 games last year without Shields, and they plugged in Matt Moore. I mean, they're just built for long-term success. They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the way they built that program down there. Now, don't get me wrong, every team's in it, as we all know, for money because it is a business. But some Major League Baseball teams have gone ahead, spend the big money to make money now. And it just seems like Tampa just has a really great coaching staff. I don't know if it has anything to do with the weather down there. I don't know what it is, or if people just like to live there. But it just seems like they can always plug and play and do something really great for that organization. And when you look at the Yankees and you look at some of the other teams that throw the big money out there, they usually implode. They get the big guy, they have a season or two, and then they're gone. But Tampa Bay seems to do it every year, and it's just very interesting on the rosters that they have, and they're able to do that without paying that big money. I mean, am I right on this? Or?
Oh, you're spot on. You're spot on. I mean, in just case in point, you bring up the Yankees. Last year, the Yankee payroll, I think 3 players on the Yankees. We could say Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, and Mark Teixeira. 3 players who played minimal action made more than the entire Tampa Bay Ray organization. And I'm talking every single player on that roster. And you could barely say, you could probably say they make as much as everybody on the farm too, but every single player on the Rays roster did not make as much as Teixeira, A-Rod, and Jeter did. You could throw out even Teixeira and say Jeter and A-Rod, but look at the records. Look at what the records were last year, Dan. I mean, Tampa wound up 93 wins. The Yankees were 76, 77. I mean, it's just principle. It's principle that you don't need to spend, and that's, again, like you said, that's good coaching. That's right up at the top, with the general managers, with the scouts. Everything about that organization screams success. The only thing I want to see happen that's different, though, is I want to see people start going to the games because, frankly, this is a very good organization that's, again, built for sustainability. Are they ever going to be a team that throws $200 million at, at a player? Probably not, But the fact of the matter is they've got some guys down there. I mean, Evan Longoria, he's as good of a player as you'll find in baseball. They're keeping him long term, and you never know what happens with Price. I mean, it's just it all starts with people getting to the games, and it's just to me, it's you get to the games. I think you're going to convince somebody. You're going to convince the upper management to build a stadium. You're going to convince Stuart Steinberg that a new stadium is needed. And those are the 2 biggest steps to sustainability and keeping that franchise long term. Because unfortunately, as is. Right now, I'd have to say the Rays are on shaky ground in Tampa. I mean, if they don't build, obviously people say in the stadium, but at the end of the day, Dan, if you're building a business and people aren't coming to it, are you going to stay at that location?
Well, yeah. I never could understand the whole indoor stadium in Tampa, Florida to begin with, or actually in the St. Pete area. Never made a whole lot of sense to me. But I don't understand the Florida fan, and this is I'm not saying anything bad. I'm from the same area myself, but if you have a team that's that successful, I don't understand why it's so hard to fill the stadium. Is it just because it doesn't feel like baseball, just indoor with the beautiful sunshine? I don't know. But you couldn't ask for a better franchise to bring you more excitement in the Tampa Bay area. Yeah, granted, they don't always have the big names, but they win. And winning is what's important. And I'm flabbergasted by the fact that they don't sell that place out on a regular basis.
Even in playoff runs, I mean, keep in mind, since 2008, there's not been a franchise that's been more successful in the regular season than Tampa. I mean, this is a team that's averaged 90 some odd wins a season. I think it's 91 to be exact. You're averaging over those things. You're averaging over 90 wins a season since 2008. They've been to a World Series. They've been to the playoffs. Obviously the World Series championship has eluded them, but keep in mind, they're winning all these games. We're talking 90-plus games in a division with Boston, in a division with the Yankees, even with Toronto, who's not afraid to throw money around. Meanwhile, you got Tampa, who's working with this dare I say, limited payroll, and they're still competing with these heavy spenders. I mean, it's not like they're winning in a division like the National League East that, it's wide open. They're winning probably in the toughest division in baseball.
Yeah, it's a marriage for success down there, too, because you figure in Dunedin, you have the Toronto Blue Jays spring training camp, so you got all their fans that are already there. You have all the Phillies out of Clearwater. So you have the Tampa Bay Rays out of Tampa, though. Obviously you got the Yankees training camp. I just don't understand how baseball isn't like overwhelmingly the biggest profit margin, or the biggest profit in that area. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever when you can go see your favorite team play in and out on a regular basis.
Oh, in your own backyard. And I know there's been a bevy of problems. I mean, I know, and Bill, you're down there. I mean, what seems to be the issue with people with the Tampa fan and not going to these Rays games? Is it the location? Is it the ballpark? Because admittedly, the Trop is outdated by Major League Baseball standards. But I mean, what seems to be the biggest issue down there?
Well, the biggest issue when you have baseball is rain. It's going to start raining in the afternoon when you have ball games. So that's why I think you need a dome or something, if it's going to rain and storm, something like a retractable roof or something.
Absolutely. But the dome, I mean, I'm not against. I like the idea of a retractable roof. They have one out here in Phoenix at Chase Field, which certainly is needed because it gets 120, 125 degrees in the middle of July and August when baseball's at tilt. But I mean, just the here and now, I'm not seeing it. Like I said, I know the stadium's not. The location. I mean, is it that far away? I mean, is it tough to reach? I'm just sort of confused.
I don't think it's tough to reach.
It's 20 minutes down the road. I mean, you just shoot right down, from the Tampa area.
Just people need more money, I guess. It's all about money. That's what everything's about, right? It's all about money.
That's the truth. It's just,
Jay, you bring up a great point, though. So you look at Phoenix, what they've done out there. They got the indoor, it's an indoor stadium, but it's true grass. So if you retract the ceiling, then you're able to have the real grass, and then you could actually, play good baseball there if the rain is an issue, So I think maybe that's the step that they need to do. But I just know baseball, me being a baseball player for many years, I always like playing baseball outside. I hate playing baseball inside. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, I mean, to me, you play basketball and hockey inside. To me, you play baseball and football outside. If it rains, that just adds to the element. I mean, that's I've played in rainstorms. I mean, I played baseball most of my youth and young adult life, and it's to me, baseball should be played under the sun. You know what I mean? It should be played under the natural elements. But we'll see if things change. I think if people continue if Tampa continues to win, people are going to have to come out. I mean, sooner rather than later, they're going to have to come out, because if they don't, what's going to happen at the end? They're going to lose a team. I mean, that's just the basic nuts and bolts of it. Is the Rays are going to move. I mean, there's markets out there that'll support them. I mean, San Antonio, I think it's itching for a major league franchise other than the Spurs to give something, the Spurs are done. It's just my biggest concern is that, that this is a city that had been itching for a major league franchise for a long time. I mean, how many near misses were there? I remember vividly the Giants back in 1993 nearly left San Francisco to come to Tampa. They had Tampa Giants shirts printed out and everything. Major League Baseball intervened. I mean, we saw near misses with the White Sox, the Reds. I mean, it's just this team was a bridesmaid for so long, and now they're finally a bride, and they've been a bride for 15, almost 20 years now. And yeah, I want to see success out of them. I really do. I think that they, I think they're trying to build sustainable for us, the sustainable franchise to keep people coming through the gates. Something's gonna have to give sooner or later, and maybe David Price has had an answer. I mean, I think maybe that frustrates people, Dan, is even though, on a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to trade a player when their player is too high, or to, let certain people walk because you can't afford it sustainability financially. Maybe it's just the adaptability, getting people get used to these names. They grasp onto the names on the back of the jersey as much as they do the ones on the front. And the Rays have a history of, like we saw with Shields. We see, these guys when they get, other than Longoria, once they reach a certain value, the Rays trade them off. I mean, does that turn the fans off, in your opinion?
Well, I think it does. I think people, these kids, they grow up there, and what do kids do? They talk to parents into go and watch baseball games, and when your hero goes away every year or two, then, yeah, that can definitely have an impact on the way, you support those teams. But the bottom line, it's still your home team, and when they're winning at that level, it just doesn't make sense to me. I understand you got the Tampa Bay Bucks, who's really down on their luck right now. I mean, looking to make a rebound, but you got Tampa Bay Lightning in there to play some really good hockey. But nobody in the Tampa Bay area over the sustainability over years has done what the Rays have done, and I just don't think that the fans of Tampa Bay do due diligence on that organization. It's very disappointing.
Absolutely. Anybody wants to chime in, 727-441-3000. Again, 727-441-3000. Speaking of the Tampa Bay Lightning, real quick on the brush on this, obviously the trade deadline in the NHL earlier this week, and the Lightning made a pretty bold move, Dan. I got to say, a pretty bold move. We talk about popular players. Martin St. Louis, really arguably one of the most popular players in Tampa Bay Lightning history. He was there during the one of the heroes of the Stanley Cup run. He's a guy who's been with the organization for quite some time. Those days have come to an end as he was traded this week to the New York Rangers in exchange for Ryan Callahan and some draft picks. I think this is, to me, and I know this isn't popular, we're talking unpopular decisions, but I think Steve Yzerman down there in Tampa did about as good as he could possibly do with the circumstances handed to him. I mean, St. Louis, there were some burnt bridges. St. Louis was disappointed he wasn't on the Canadian national team. Said he wanted out, said he wanted to go to the New York Rangers, didn't want to go anywhere else. And, as an intending free agent to be, I think, getting a player like Ryan Callahan in return, who is a very good two-way player, also picking up some draft picks. I mean, I think that's about as good of a pickup as you're going to get for St. Louis, and circumstances with handing. I mean, this isn't this franchise that had flexibility to trade him more ever. I mean, he specifically said, I want to go to the New York Rangers. And, to get Callahan back, who is a good, young, talented two-wayer, plus draft picks, you can't do much better than that, in my opinion.
It's, there's two things to this. I think the trade is actually a pretty damn good business move, but I know that St. Louis is like bigger than life at Tampa. If you really look about it, he is the Tampa Bay Lightning. So again, it's another big player leaving the Tampa Bay area that there's probably going to be a little bit of disgruntledness there going on. But hey, it's business. He's been there a long time. He's getting up in his years, and it probably makes sense right now for that organization, Steve Yzerman.
Absolutely. I mean, business is business, and that's something that I think a lot of people need to figure out. Is if St. Louis is disgruntled and he didn't want to be here anymore, the fact of the matter is you got to make the most of what you can, and that's again when we talk about this with the Rays, man. It's not about giving up, not about giving up on the player. It's getting maximum return for him, and I think they certainly got maximum return. Speaking of maximum return, we've seen over the last couple of weeks a complete revitalization of the Buccaneers look. Interesting is the way I'll put the jerseys, Dan. It's not quite a little bit bold, a little bit. I don't know the proper definition to define it, but it's definitely an interesting look that the Bucs have there. There's the jerseys, the new helmet. The helmet's basically a revitalization of the flag logo with the skull. But what do you think of these bad boys? Have you had a chance to see them yet?
You know, I was out there and training that Army stuff there, Jay. I didn't get a chance to see them. I saw some prototypes prior to me taking off. And you know what? These uniforms can be changed all you want. You know, the way I look at it, look at Chicago Bears, look at the Green Bay Packers. Jerseys and uniforms, they don't sell championships. So the bottom line is look at the Oregon Ducks. They got the best uniforms probably, or at least the most frequent uniforms in all of football, and they still haven't got them a national championship. So I think people need to quit worrying about the uniforms, play football, and do due diligence on your organization.
I think it's, you know, each team, you mentioned Oregon, a good example. It's just too much. I mean, some of these jerseys nowadays, they go just over the top with the look. It's you know, it's trying to see who can splash the most crap on the front of them. I mean, it's you know, like you said, I just want to see football. I don't care what's on the front of the jerseys, what's on the back of the jerseys, how dapper they look, how unique they look. And sometimes unique isn't better. This is art. This isn't art. This is sports. You know, just leave them alone. I mean, the best jerseys in sports, in my opinion, like you mentioned, the Chicago Bears, the New York Giants, the Green Bay Packers, nothing spectacular or flashy about them. The 49ers, there's nothing flashy about them at all. It's just get out there and, you know, they're simple, they're classic. Less is more. And I you know, these Buccaneer jerseys, these helmets, I mean, it's just, again, it's a little too bold for my liking. You know, everybody tries to be Picasso with these damn things, and I just get out there and play. Well, you know, put the jerseys on and play. You know, and I know at the end of the day, jerseys, helmets, it's all about, you know, selling merchandise, pushing merchandise. But I think the Buccaneers had a perfectly fine look. You know, I think their jerseys, their uniform, I think their uniform color combo, I think they've always been one of the better ones in the league. Even going back to the Peter Orange years, you know what I mean? Going back to the Bucco Bruce and the creamsicle orange. I mean, why change what's not broken? It's just, you know, is it about being new? Is it being about up the times? I don't know. I just think it's, you know, I think sometimes change for the sake of change isn't always a good thing.
Well, you know, I'll leave one opinion on this before we move into MMA and all that, talking about the UFC and what have you. But here's my thing. The Buccaneers won a championship with the uniforms they had. You are branding a organization. So you look at the Green Bay Pack, you look at Chicago, you look at the Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers. There's no need to change a uniform. Their uniform is what they are. I mean, their championships runs have been in those uniforms. So that is a marketing tool. It's branding, it's trademarking, and they continue to change uniforms every decade or whatever. I just don't think it makes any sense. The fans are well aware of what the team is, and they recognize them by the colors they wear. It's almost like you know, it's a following. Look at the Dallas Cowboys. They haven't won, I don't think, since 1996, right? But look, they're still like one of the biggest selling merchandisers out there. Why? Because they stayed loyal to the uniform.
Absolutely. And it's so that's what happened. That's, again, you bring up a good point. I think it's a good way to segue into the MMA discussion. Speaking of Dallas, the big news of the week from the world of MMA, a rumor that is rocking the landscape. Gina Carano, the beautiful, vivacious pioneer of women's MMA, and I'm not going to call Gina the originator of women's MMA because this has been going on for years, but Gina was the first female to really put women's MMA on the map. And it's easy to gravitate behind her because, again, she is just absolutely a stunning-looking female. Just has everything, you know, she's just absolutely drop-dead gorgeous, to put it mildly. And anyway, stepped away from the sport. There's talks now and rumors that Gina may be making a comeback in the UFC, and a super fight against Ronda Rousey may be on the horizon coming up on the July 4th weekend. There's a couple of points I want to throw out here, and I want to get your 2 cents on this, Dan. Number one, on a business avenue, I see where this makes sense. I smell what the UFC's cooking here. All right, obviously, Gina is gorgeous. She's got crowd appeal to her. She's got name recognition. And this is, you know, a fight between probably the two biggest names. I'm not saying the two best fighters, but the two biggest names in women's MMA history. I can see where the Dana White and the UFC will be going with this direction. And if for some circumstance some way, somehow, Gina Carano clips that knocks her out, beats her one way or the other, it's an easy transition. You can market Gina Carano as the face of your company in terms of women's MMA. I don't understand, though, Dan, how, this is a woman who's been on the sidelines since 2010, 2011. She's been making movies. She hasn't even, and I'm not saying she hasn't trained, but this woman hasn't had a fight in almost 3 years. You're going to put her in there, and you're on a fight fan standpoint, a commentator standpoint, you're putting her in there in a title fight. I'm just sort of a little bit lost in the shuffle on this. I don't know how to feel in terms of the fight side. I think if Gina's going to come back, it's a huge coup for the UFC. I'm all about it. But let her work her way up. Put her in there with somebody like a Liz Tarmouche or a Rosie Sexton or somebody along those lines. To throw her in there right away against a Gina Carano, against a Ronda Rousey, it just sends a bad message to me because, again, it shows me that and not knocking the UFC here, but when you got women there like Kat Zingano, like Alexis Davis, that are amped to get a title shot, that are deserving of a title shot, and you throw somebody who's been on the sidelines for 3 years into the title mix, is it about fights or is it about money? Is it about making the most dollars or putting on the best fights? You tell me. What are your opinions, Dan?
I got two. Excuse me. I got two opinions on this whole thing. Do I feel that she should have to climb the ladder again? Absolutely. I think she should have to get in there and get tested. I think the risk of that, though, is if she doesn't do well, then the money doesn't ever happen. So I'm going to hit you from two angles on this. I think Rousey's a formidable, obviously, opponent for her. I think Gina wins the stand-up game if she gets her training back where it was. I think also that 2-year layoff, if she has been doing some kind of training, I think that she's probably the most game as far as the outside game. So I think she brings a very good opponent. I guess what I'm saying is I think she brings a pretty game, fight plan in that has something that could, defeat Ronda Rousey if it goes into the late rounds. But on the other hand of it is, I think Dana's not silly, and I know that they're both huge names, and I think Dana does have a little loyalty to her because if it weren't for Gina Carano, we wouldn't probably be talking about women's MMA right now. So there's a lot of good and bad in this, but I think if Dana takes the chance and makes her have a couple fights that she does get knocked off by somebody like Carmouche or somebody along those lines, then I think the super fight never happens, and I think we lose a lot of money.
And again, from a business standpoint, you're absolutely right. Again, there's too much. With a name like Gina Carano, there is too much risk putting her in there with somebody like a Zingano that she could lose. I definitely get that, and it's a cash cow. Make no mistake about it, Dan. This will sell. Ronda versus Gina will sell. People will buy this fight on pay-per-view. And right now, at the end of the day, let's be brutally honest, with George St. Pierre going away, Anderson Silva's future in question, the pay-per-view sellers are running few and far between. We saw Ronda versus Sarah McMahon just put up a couple 100,000 pay-per-view sales. Ronda's a seller. They want that big splash, though. They want that big splash, and you put Ronda and Gina. Is it far-fetched, Dan, to say that fight could sell 500,000 pay-per-views, maybe 1 million? I don't think so. With the two name recognition fighters, I don't think it's improbable at all that those two could sell 1 million pay-per-views.
I think when we talked about this, I think it's all about the way the Fertitta brothers line this up and, the super guys over there at the UFC. I think what they have to do is they have to put a fight on that card that is just as good, that brings it in. It could even be a fight. It could even be a rematch of, say, somebody like Johnny Dodson and, Johnson. But there has to be a secondary fight in there to bring that pay-per-view. But I think if they do it right, I think they definitely could hit that like you said, the 500,000. Maybe put
Dan Cormier in there against somebody. Maybe put Dan Cormier versus Rashad Evans. There's a lot of ways they can sell this pay-per-view up. And for women, this is just a big, the fact that we're talking about this right now, Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. This possibly selling 500,000 to 1 million pay-per-views. How far has women's MMA come? Love Ronda or hate her, and I know she's probably, if not the most polarizing figure in MMA, one of the most polarizing. She sells tickets. She gets people watching. She gets people to the gate. She gets people tuned into their TV sets. I mean, so these two women have done so much. I think Gina was the trailblazer of it that get women recognized and the much-deserved recognition they deserve. And Ronda has kicked the doors open and took it to a whole nother level. So, I mean, it's fitting. The fight is fitting. It makes sense on a business avenue. And, we'll see what happens. I know in the meantime, some more lurking out there is Christiane Cyborg. And people are left asking themselves, what about her, Dan? And I got to throw it out there. What about Chris Cyborg? I mean, I think she's saying she's willing to drop to 135. She wants Rousey in the worst possible way. Could she be lurking in the lurch here and waiting for her opportunity for the winner of this?
Now, she's down there in Invictus still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, here's my opinion on her. My thing is she comes with controversy, as we all know, with other things. But, I think Dana makes her climb the ladder, though. I think there's a difference because I think she's huge in Brazil. She is pretty big in America, and she is an excellent fighter. I think she's got to come from 170 down to 35, which is not going to be that big of a deal for her. I think she's definitely probably the most formidable opponent, but I just don't know that Dana wants that as his champion right now. And I know that if he brings her in there, that's probably what's going to happen. So I think that's probably the next play if he passes on Gina Carano.
I think that makes sense. And I know there's some talks that Cyborg's talking about. She said, I'm going to make the natural transition to 135. She's going down and again in Invictus. She wants to fight Lauren Murphy, who's the 135-pound champ for Invictus. Then she wants to the backseat, so to speak. I think the reality, whether it's Gina winning the belt or it's Ronda, I think both of them are keeping the seat warm. Because I think once Cyborg gets into the UFC, I think it's just a foregone conclusion she's winning the belt. I mean, this woman is, my opinion, the best female fighter of all time. I mean, she's just everything so fluidly. She not only gets in there and beats her opponents, Dan, she destroys them. I mean, when's the last time you've seen Cyborg even so much as tested? And that's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, tested what's she going to be like when she goes into deep waters? We don't know. We don't know, but we know if it takes a special kind of talent to survive that pace.
Oh yeah, and I think, like you just said, you hit it right on the head. Other than age working against her here in the near future, there's never been a female that's just all around a better athlete than her as far as when it comes to mixed martial arts. And I will tell you, she is a killer, if that is to use the word lightly. She is going to come in there and she is going to wreak havoc on the UFC division. So I just don't know that the UFC has enough bench to even keep her, the competition even tight. So I just don't know that they're ready for that yet. They need to build a bigger bench, a bigger talent pool, in my opinion, because she is in there, and let me tell you, it is strictly business. There's no showmanship as far as her fight. She's coming in to wreck you.
She's coming in, and she's not fighting by the hour, that's for sure. She's fighting by the minute, and and believe me, she comes in there, she's going to wreak havoc, and she's going to do it on the UFC's women's division too when she gets down to 135. Make no bones about it. I mean, I don't think really right now there's anybody on the women's roster other than maybe Rousey that could even make her sweat. So, and there's some talented women too. I mean, make no bones. Alexis Davis is very good. Kat Zingano, great fighter. But I mean, Cyborg is just she's a cyborg. I mean, she's a cyborg, and that's not just a moniker. It's just, she's untouchable if we get there. But speaking of untouchable, the big MMA last week was the banning of TRT in Nevada. The banning of it, I know California and now Brazil have followed suit. This has caused some backlash in the MMA community, most notably Vitor Belfort. And we touched on this last week with Tyler King, but Vitor Belfort backs out of his middleweight title fight against Chris Weidman because of it. I mean, the TRT, and what are your thoughts on TRT? I mean, you think that the athletic commission's made the right move by shifting gears and, saying, hey, this stuff's not kosher, we're not going to allow it?
Well, yeah, I do, and I say that for the simple fact that, hey, at some point you got to pull the plug on all these supplemental, things that are coming in there, because obviously if you look at Vitor Belfort at his age, he is a freak for being a 40-year-old guy, and I understand that, it was legal and all these other things for a while, but, at some point you just gotta say, hey, this is where we're at with the sport, and for the integrity of it, everybody has to have a fair advantage, and if you continue to let certain things come into the sport, then there's obviously going to be an unfair advantage. So whether he pulls out of his fight or not, what does that tell you? It tells you that he's on that thing used to get into his training camp or what have you. So I think it's the right decision. I don't know why the backlash is so big. I mean, what do you think about it?
To me, I think Vitor backing out proves he's not confident in his abilities without it. I mean, this is a guy who's always – that's the thing about Vitor is he's always had that God-gifted ability. He's always been a guy who is just capable of – I mean, he's got that ridiculous speed, that ridiculous knockout power. I mean, to me, it's always been a mental game for Vitor. I mean, that's the big question is which Vitor is going to show up. And now, this does nothing to people that have been critical of Vitor because of his TRT use. I mean, this does nothing to silence those critics. Listen, I train every day on a daily basis, and I'm a very good friend with Aaron Simpson, who was a UFC vet, fought at 185 and 170. Aaron, a very good friend of mine. Now, Aaron will be the first to tell you, Dan, he's not the most athletic guy in the world, and he got started young. He didn't exactly get started, in the youngest of age. I mean, this is a sport that's meant for 21 to 25-year-old men to get started in. Aaron started when he was 34 years old. Okay, he's not a young man by any means to get started. It would have been very easy for Aaron to take such shortcuts. If anybody was an excuse to use TRT, it's Aaron Simpson. He didn't. He never used an actual supplement in his life. So I mean that's my principle is is TRT needed? Why? I mean, I understand what it does. It helps in the recovery time. It helps in the testosterone boost. It helps in all that stuff. But what's the difference between that and steroids, Dan? I mean, where do we draw a thin line? We're gonna we got to allow TRT for some. We might as well allow weed for Nick Diaz. We might as well allow, steroids for someone else. I mean, you've got to just, there comes a point in time where you can only make so many exceptions, and exceptions to the rule. And to me, I'm not going to deny and lie and say that, everybody in there all the time is 100% natural. I mean, you'll see, drug tests come up dirty every now and again. But the fact of the matter is, it's just, I want to see two people at their best, not one person versus the other person who's on TRT or any other supplement. I think it's unnecessary. I think it takes away a little bit of the integrity of the sport to use this, and I think that these commissions made the absolute 100% right move, stepping in and saying, look, it's not happening. It's done. The TRT's done. You're not going to do it here. You may see a lot of people drop out of the sport as a result. You may see a lot of people hang up the gloves, but I think that's a risk I think that these commissions in this sport's willing to take as a whole, and I think it's the right move.
Well, and I'm not ever going to sit out there and say that, Vitor is on that or whatever, and that was his decision or whatever. But, I mean, here's the bottom line. You got a title shot against one of the up-and-comers in the MMA world, and why would you not want to take that fight unless, your body's just beat down or whatever? There's more to the story that'll come out in the future. But now the big issue, though, is who fights him now?
It's actually going to be Lyoto Machida. Machida has actually stepped up to the plate, and he's going to be taking that fight. So, which is, I think, actually a more dangerous fight for Weidman than Belfort was, because, again, the things about Belfort is, number one, he's always had trouble with wrestlers, really strong wrestlers who can put him on his back. Number two, it's a mental thing. With Machida, you don't have those problems. Machida is very, very good at the takedown defense. And, I mean, that striking is so pinpoint, so quick. So, I mean, I think for Weidman, it's a tougher fight for him. I'll tell you right now, for one of my other training partners, Ryan Bader, he's talked to me several times. He said, Lyoto Machida is the toughest individual I've ever faced because of takedown ability. I mean, and Ryan was a multi-time All-American at Arizona State, So, I mean, the thing is, I think that we actually got a better fight here because of Vitor backing out than we had before. And that's not a dig on Vitor by any means, but I think this is the better of the two fights.
Well, yeah, and I think it's like you said, it's a much more dangerous fight. And to be honest with you, I mean, Machida he represents the sport very well. No controversy comes with that guy. I mean, he's a disciplinarian, and hey, it's not a bad replacement. And, I'll tell you, it makes a very tough fight for Chris Weidman, because if he can't take him down, then he's got to get into the striking exchanges with him. And I think Machida definitely has the upper hand in that department.
And fair play to Weidman. I mean, give that guy credit where credit's due. He could have said, as a champion, we've seen champions pull the card. We've seen John Jones do it. He could have said, I want whatever. Weidman said yes right away. We're going to put you in there with Lyoto Machida. Cool, let's do it. Let's rock. Because this is a champion, Chris Weidman. He wants to fight the best in the world, and I'll tell you right now, if he can beat Lyoto Machida after back-to-back wins over Anderson Silva, I think a lot of these critics that are unfairly bashing the guy, I think they'll be silenced. I don't think there's any way you could. I think it's asinine that people are not giving him his due now. When this guy beat the greatest fighter of all time, not once but twice. Say what you will about the circumstances, he beat him. That's the end of the day. It was he knocked him out the first time. Second time was unfortunate, but he was on his way to a win there too before the injury happened. So he beats him, and then if he can beat Lyoto Machida, what criticisms could be left of him? How could you take anything away from the guy? I think it comes a point in time where he'd be considered one of the elite fighters. He should be considered one of the elite fighters if he wins this fight. I think he should be now. Because it takes a special person to beat Anderson Silva. But I think, again, fair play to Chris Weidman for taking this fight.
Well, I'll tell you, you just don't know really what that does for him either, because, the respect level is going to be growing on a daily basis. Because most people would just say, no, we're just not going to take that fight at all. And we know there's champions out there that have passed on fights, and we could talk about Jones and Chael. So for Chris to just jump up there and just say, hey, I'll take on Lyoto Machida, who's the former champion, that is huge as far as character. And it just tells you about the camp that he's with, and the guys he's around, You take the best, and, win or lose, that you didn't leave nothing on the table.
Speaking of fights, it'll be happening tonight on UFC Fight Pass. Those of you with the special folks that have it, it'll be a good event coming up here tonight. It's going to be UFC Fight Night. Alexander Gustafsson steps back into the octagon. UFC Ultimate Fight Night 37 to be exact. He'll be stepping into the octagon. A lot of people thought he won the fight, but for Gustafsson, he was, the losing end of the judge's decision. Back to the drawing board for him, back to the hunt, so to speak, as he takes on the very tough, unbeaten Jimmy Manuwa. Now, here's the thing about Manuwa. This guy just ridiculous power, some outstanding Muay Thai. He's been well-rounded. Questions I got about Manuwa, though, this is a big step up in competition for him. Gustafsson was literally one judge away from winning this fight. And we've never really seen Manuwa in hot water. And, on top of things, we're talking a pretty substantial reach. Gustafsson 6'6", Manuwa 6 foot tall. So, how do you see it playing out?
I can't go against Gustafsson on this. The performance he had against Jones, I'm going all the way with him. I just want to ask you, where can I watch this fight at?
It's on UFC Fight Pass, unfortunately. So unless you're a subscriber to the Fight Pass, they're not showing it on TV, to my knowledge.
Okay, so you probably have to hit the Buffalo Wild Wings action or something.
Yeah, very likely. Or if you got the Xbox Live or over the phone or something like that. But
who do you got in it?
Well, you know what I mean? I like what Manuwa has done in his career. He's 13-0. He's got 13 finishes. That's rare. That is very rare. But the question is, though, the biggest medal of a fighter isn't how many fights you finish. It's how you deal with adversity. And make no mistake about it, Alexander Gustafsson is a hungry fighter. He knows that, in some accounts, in his mind, he may know, look, I was given a raw deal against John Jones. Whether you agree with that or not is debatable, But I think in Gustafsson's mind, he should be the light heavyweight champion now, and he knows that this division is growing leaps and bounds. With Glover Teixeira getting the next shot, Danny Cormier coming up the ranks, Phil Davis not far away from a shot, Anthony Johnson coming back. He knows he's got to have a strong performance tonight, and he cannot sleep on Jimmy Manuwa by any means. But I think the reach and I think his overall striking diversity will make this his fight. I think he's going to pick Manuwa apart. I think he's going to take Manuwa to deep waters, which is somewhere Manuwa has never been.
And I think he's going to point his way to a very gritty decision. I think, Manoa, there's going to be points in this fight where Manoa, he's got such good striking power, especially early on, and such explosiveness to where he's going to make it interesting. He's going to keep Gustafsson guessing. But to me, I can't see any manner that Gustafsson doesn't win this fight. I think he's the taller and lankier, the more diverse striker. I think he wins by decision. Now, another fight that's of interest coming up tonight here, Dan, is we've got literally a couple minutes left here in the program. Another fight is Battle of the Former Black Zillion Teammates. Real quick, we got about 2 minutes left. You got Melvin Guillard taking on Michael the Menace Johnson. Now, Melvin Guillard, you've had a chance to spar with him, I'm sure, at times at Jackson's MMA. There may not be a more physically gifted fighter in MMA. We talked earlier, though, about the mental, cerebral side of things. Melvin Guillard's biggest enemy seems to be Melvin Guillard overall. And, tonight he's got a tough fight against Michael Johnson, who really has, had a tough 2-fight stretch, but has bounced back very nicely in a big-time way and maybe on the cusp of a top 5 fight. Dan, real quick, what are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you think is winning it?
I got to go with Melvin Guillard. I think that Johnson's still a little bit weak in the chin when he faces the big guys. I think Melvin wins this fight.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the Menace in this one. I think a little bit more athletic, and I think he's going to be able to catch. I think he's going to be able to catch Melvin off guard. I don't think he knocks him out, but I think that the Menace has some good submission game on the ground, and I think he knows a little bit about Melvin. I think from training together, he knows what Melvin is, what his strengths are, and what his weaknesses are. I don't think he's going to want to engage too much. He's going to want to put this on the ground as quickly as possible. To wrap it up for today's show, though, Dan, another excellent broadcast here at Full No Punches Radio. Tim, we'd like to thank you for joining us each and every week here on this program. Whether we've entertained you or we've made you think, we've always tried to bring our best, and we look forward to doing this many, many more weeks to come. For Dan O'Brien, Mr. Bill behind the board, I am Jay Pagliaro. Dan, any final comments?
I just want to welcome everybody, to the show whenever they want to listen in, and join us on Enlisted 9 Fight Company on Facebook. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will talk to you soon here on Full No Punches Radio on the Enlisted 9, powered by Enlisted 9 Fight Company and brought to you by the Tan Talk Radio Network.